Recording started. Is it overcast where you are?
Is it what?
Overcast?
What does it mean?
The cloud cover, like cloudy.
Oh, okay. It's on and off. It's
Okay.
on and off. Yes. Right now it's shiny, and then yeah, it has been on and off all day.
Yeah, it's definitely overcast here. In fact, there was some light rain when I drove home, which I love, because
Instead, overcast. Overcast means literally. What does it mean
it's
literally?
like a gray skies,
Gray
basically.
sky. Okay.
Yeah.
That's I didn't know that English.
And I told you I got schooled by one of the
Hmm.
the sixth graders about my French
I
this
like
morning.
that. Like she knows French,
He
or he.
he he. Yeah, I'm assuming he maybe was. I have to ask him tomorrow.
That's nice. Do you teach French in your school?
Corvo had it for 4 years
Ah, yeah.
at Denver School of the Arts. Yeah,
Nice.
so um, and so Corvo knows more than I do, which I think is kind of it's really a shame for me. I often think about wasted opportunities because my dad I think he majored in French in college, and he went on a Mormon mission to France. Oops. Because my dad. There we go. Okay, so it's muted. Yeah, so it was a wasted opportunity. He's fluent in French and German. My mom was fluent in, I think, both French and German. German more because her dad, native born German.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so the dad continued to speak German to her.
Yeah, and my parents would sometimes have conversations in German.
That's nice. We speak French at home, but we've seen a lot of evolution in the kids.
Uh-huh.
When we first moved here in 2014, the boys didn't speak a word of English.
Uh-huh.
Isaiah was 6 and Noah was turning 4. And so we moved here in like August 31st. And by December, Isaiah was already fluent in English. And
Wow.
for Noah, it took a year. For Noah, he was
Wow.
younger. He was doing he was going, 3 hours, 3 times a week to school.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so poor guy would spend afternoons crying. He would go just morning, 8:30, 11:30, and then I'll pick him up. And he would be crying, and because he wouldn't understand, what was being said at school. He was miserable. And at that time, I was like, oh, you just need to, listen to what they tell you and things like that. And now when I think about it, I'm sad because I'm like, poor thing. He was in distress because it was such a huge thing to move from a country and be thrown to strangers in a language you don't speak. So I just can imagine how challenging it has been for him.
Right, and that's a lot of your work. That's where you're passionate about is these traumatic experiences. Whether I don't know if I'd classify this one as a mild trauma or severe trauma, but it's yeah, that's
I would say it's
challenging.
It's challenging. It's challenging because I would say a trauma is anything, that is disruptive in the normal growth, development of someone. And this is for sure, I attribute his, what they called ADHD later. I attribute it to that and another series of events. But today he is great. He's just the most loving and happy and fun and energetic kid. And I love watching him be. And he speaks English has become his first language. And he still speaks to me in French. But his French is less what do you say? Like the word perfect than Isaiah's.
Gotcha. Yeah. What about Bella Joy? Is she growing up bilingual?
She is funny. She is very funny because she was born in 2019 and then there was COVID. So for 2 years, her only language was French. We went last summer to France for 2 months and she didn't speak a word of English. Okay, so we went to France. It was French, so she spoke French to her uncles and grandmas and everyone. And then we came back to the States, and in September, she started speaking English. And now she mostly speaks English. I speak to her in French, and she understands everything because she answers perfectly. But she doesn't speak to me in French anymore. And I'm like, what?
She made the decision that she didn't want to use
For
French as
now.
opposed to English. Yeah.
For now. But for now, I will read her books in French. She will watch Peppa Pig in French, but she wouldn't speak it. She will just say maman and oui and quick words. But if she needs to be in a conversation, she will speak English. And I think it's going to be even worse now that she is in preschool.
Right. Right. And she's what, 3.5?
She's 3.5. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But hopefully she won't forget it. Yeah. That's it's funny. It's funny how people had told me before we moved, like, you'll see how the kids are going to switch the language they speak. And to me, it was like, I don't know how that is going to happen, but it's just funny to watch it because really it does happen overnight.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I think with younger children that they have that. I'm not saying that adults don't have it, but the word I'm thinking of is neuroplasticity. They have the ability to adapt to different languages quite.
Yeah, the brain grows. The part of the brain is still growing. Usually the prefrontal cortex and all of that. Yeah, it's growing. So yeah, the brain can adapt and they can learn new things and shape themselves to be differently. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
it continued throughout our life. That was a big discovery, right? Neuroplasticity.
Yes. That's one of the big regrets for me, I guess. I can think of it any way I want, but the fact that I didn't take advantage of the fact that we had 2 fluent German and French speakers in the house, and they never used it except for conversations amongst themselves. But we had that opportunity, and then my dad was actually, when we moved to Moab, Utah, he was hired to teach French and German in the high school because they had that program. But then they dropped the program after a year or 2 years. So he was left with, his choice was, well, can you teach another subject or do something else? And he decided to do something else. He went into did construction.
He was a teacher.
He was a teacher initially. I think I wish I wish my parents were still alive so I could have more perspective on it now. But my understanding, and I can see working with high school students how if you put up a persona that's approachable, they might get under your skin. So he had that persona that my mom said that the high schoolers would call at home and do prank phone calls and stop by the house and everything. So I think it might have been a little too much for him to handle, because he wasn't quote unquote tough enough. Tough enough to deal with the high schoolers.
Yeah, I mean, there are something, these high schoolers. But while you were talking, there was a friend who grew up. I can't remember which friend it is, but somebody told me that 2 or 3 days ago, someone whose grandma would speak to her in Spanish, and then she had forgotten the Spanish, and she went on vacation with her husband to a Hispanic country not long ago. And after 2 or 3 weeks, she found herself speaking Spanish. So she was saying, oh yeah, I know, that's Judy. Judy, it's you, if you're watching. And she said, the Spanish, it was there stored in the brain.
And just needed to reactivate.
When she was immersed, it came back. She's like, oh, like she called it the RS in the brain. And she said, oh, that it was still in there. So that's fun too. And that was interesting to me because it's like, I always come back to that, the trauma or anything. So it means that our body just stores everything. And that book, The Body Keeps a Score, really talks about that. It stores everything. And whether good or bad, it will show up in some ways. So it's good to process whatever happens to us, right? So it can contribute to the good growth of ourselves and our bodies and everything else. But
yeah, I'm fascinated by what my brain will throw up to me, serve up to me. It's like, oh, that's a memory. I haven't thought about this in
yeah,
30 years and
it just
40 years,
comes.
but it's still there. It's still up there. Yeah.
And it's still there. And the way it works is also fascinating, knowing that it works with prompts. So it's like they
Yes.
said, it's like a computer. Like when we do a Google search, like there is a word, and then it sorts things and put them
Yep.
together. And that's why when you're learning something, they say it's good to review it, like to read it several times.
Mhm.
So that it stays in the brain, and then the brain it's gonna go and get it when it needs it. It's already organized, like, right? It's like everything is well
Yes.
stored, but there are things that you never go back to, so they just remain dormant.
Yeah,
And
but
that
they're still there, which I
they're
think is really
there,
fascinating. They're still
but
there.
it's like the song in us we were talking about a couple of days ago. It will just die in us without being ever expressed.
Mhm.
So for sure we can't use everything we learn and read, but for me it's just fascinating to keep on adding data and using it. That's
Yes. Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. I was going to say, as you were talking about, reading something multiple times and putting it in, I think what happens with that as well is now, if you've read it multiple times, you not only have one prompt, maybe you have several different prompts that you can go back to and say, oh, this reminds me of.
So it comes more quickly. It
Yes. Yeah.
for memory to keep, for it to be well ingrained in your brain. And Eric Lofam, our friend, was also saying in a podcast that if you listen to something that you really like, that you want to learn things, like a podcast or even a book,
Yeah.
like repetition
Yep.
will fix it in your brain. So if you listen to it 7 times,
7 times.
it's really readily available in your brain. So you will go back to it very quickly. So
Well,
I
let
try
me,
to
let me
do that.
ask you this: it is we have. I'm going to try to marshal us and keep us on time today.
Okay. And I
So we have
promise I
about
won't go in long tirades.
yeah we have about 5 minutes left, and I'm interested to know what you are in the process of assimilating 7 times in your life right now.
What I am in the process of assimilating 7 times, that's an interesting question, but I would say I have an idea. I have several interests, a lot of interest. I read a lot and I read several things, but these days I have decided to remain focused on the body of work that I'm doing. So I am really listening to, I'm very much interested with the work of Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk, Dan Seeger, and all the books really that touch conscious parenting and conscious being a woman, and how we can really be the full expressions of ourselves. So the books that I have read that are all bestsellers, translated in 30 languages. And so that are solid information. I'm trying to read them again. I'm starting to listen to podcasts where the authors have spoken, and just to be even more of a specialist of those things that my body of work like is very specialized right now.
Could you tell me one specific one that this is either you've read it 7 times, or this you're saying this is my 7X book. This is the one I'm traveling through 7 times.
I haven't read, because they're all big, so I haven't read any of them 7 times. But they're in my office and by my bed. They're there, so I take them. I underline, I write. I would read just a little part and then write an essay on one part specifically. So yeah, those are the books. For the children, the one from Gabor Mate that I haven't cited yet, but that is very an important one. It's Scattered Brain.
Mm.
that talks about the attachment theory. That's one that I go back to very much. I go back to the ACEs, not the Body Keep the Score, but the one from Nadine Burke Harris,
Mm.
The Deepest Well. That
Mm.
is one that is also very like just the way she explained the things in a very she's a doctor, but she explained it in a very almost like a literature, the way she writes it. I go back to that one very much. I'm reading and I'm just loving, and actually I am rereading already parts of the newest book of Gabor Mate. I like it very much. I will read a lot The Ultimate Coach, you and I.
Yeah. For those of you who, I think a lot of people who are watching or listening to us are involved in that group as well. But The Ultimate Coach is a book. It's by Amy Hardison and Alan D. Thompson. And it's a book that's how we met.
Yes.
And I'm taking the advice of the man who it's about, Steve Hardison, and I'm asking myself the questions that he poses on the back cover and in the front pages of the book. And I'm reading it. I'm going to read it at least 7 times.
Oh yeah.
I'm
We're
on the
not
fifth. I'm
far
on the 5th trip right now, and every time I get something new out of it, and you could apply that to any other book as well. It's like,
in
well,
your life,
yeah.
exactly.
So how many trips through it can I make? So that's one, and I can see Living Untethered as being one.
Oh, Living Untethered and The Untethered Soul, both of them. Yeah,
Yes.
I've read them twice. The Untethered Soul twice, and Living Untethered once for now.
Yeah.
But definitely think that you want to go back, and because it's so true, and you don't want to forget them because they really enhance the way you live. So you want to hold on to it, right? Oh, talking about hold on, there is this great book on parenting, Hold On to Your Kids, that is written by Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld. That is also an excellent book, especially for parents of teenagers, on how to hold on to them so that their peer don't become the people who influence them, but you remain the person, the center person of their lives.
Yeah, well, we could talk more about that later. I'm not sure that I don't know how I feel about that. If necessarily as somebody who's a teenager or a young adult needs their parents as the central influence in their lives. I don't know.
What he says is that, a duck will be with his mom to teach him the things. But if the cue you get from the world is from kids who don't know the word, then it's not that great. Yeah, they haven't experienced life yet. It doesn't mean that us as parents we're perfect, but at least you and I are on the quest of not perfection, but living our best life, and on loving people, on serving people, right?
But so I think maybe for us to model that,
yes,
but not
to impose. We don't impose.
Not
no,
impose.
we never.
Impose is a good word. Yeah.
Discipline is more, even in the Christ, like the way we don't use it that way, but discipline is really modeling. And your disciple will just do, as a student, will study you and do what you're doing. It's really, it's not harsh. Do what I tell you to do, right? So
it's more set the example for.
It set the example, and let them emulate you. Because a lot of the things that I do that I don't like doing, that I've seen my parents do, they didn't teach them to me. But what I end up doing is the things they were doing that I didn't necessarily like. So
yeah. Well, we're actually a minute over, so that's not bad.
That's good, not bad.
I'm going to be as a production manager as we get this
going. Good. That's good.
It's hard sometimes when you get on I mean, well, obviously with you and I, we have lots to talk about. And so we get on, we get going, and then it's hard to say, okay, time's up. But I'm going to say time's up, at least for those of you who are on Facebook watching us. And I'm going to stop the stream right now, but say goodbye.
Bye, guys. See you tomorrow.
We'll see you soon. All right, we're out. Whoops. Stop the recording.